Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Payoff Pitch. My name is Joey Olberding, and I will be your host for all things sports. So on this Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, I want to talk to you about the MLB, and specifically the MLB All-Star Ballot. Because we're just getting into the season where we start to talk about what players are having the best seasons and who should be recognized by getting an all-star participation and being in the all-star game. Of course, there are a lot of players and a lot of good players at that, so I'm going to have to run through each position for each league, and I'll do it kind of briefly, hopefully. I won't be talking about the pitchers because fans don't vote for pitchers, so can't really do that. But I will be starting off with American League first base. Now, the thing with the American League is that, well, the American League has a lot of good players, but the National League also does, because, two leagues, whatever. The National League, though, has a lot higher skilled players, in my opinion. There are a lot of players who have really proven their worth this year. And there's a bigger divide between them rather in the American League. So the American League has a lot of players that are pretty close. And currently leading the AL first base is Luke Voit of the New York Yankees. Of course, with all the voting and all of that being from everywhere across the country, you're bound to get bias. So there's a lot of Yankees bias, a lot of Cubs bias, stuff like that. But Luke Voit, I think, has really proven his worth and is my personal pick to be number one as well. He's batting .273 with 17 home runs, and he's just doing really well, especially because Luke Voit wasn't even supposed to maybe even play for the Yankees because he wasn't. Basically, the Yankees have gone through a ton of injuries this year, tons of them. Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, you name it. Basically, every player on their roster has been injured at some point during this season. So it's really quite the marvel that the Yankees have been doing as well as they have, and Luke Voit is a reason for that. He has really been the spark plug for this offense, when earlier in the season people were saying Luke Voit might not be good enough, but he's really proven his worth. Other players I would consider are C.J. Cron of the Twins leading the AL Central. I called it, nobody else did. But I digress. C.J. Cron has also been great for them. He's batting .277, 15 home runs. Basically the same numbers as Voit, but Voit's storyline is a bit more interesting. Carlos Santana of the Indians playing first base, .285, 14 home runs. He's doing real well. And one more just to mention, Jose Abreu of the White Sox. He's batting .267 and 17 home runs. Basically, he's just playing like Luke Voit, but with a slightly worse average. But Jose Abreu, also really the spark plug of the White Sox offense. He's been doing fantastic this year. If I were the White Sox, I would not trade him at the deadline, like so many people are telling the White Sox to do. Anyways, on to the National League. And the National League has a clear front runner, you might think. Josh Bell of the Pittsburgh Pirates has been clamoring the ball. He's been hitting it into the deck. He's been killing it, man. Josh Bell, .319, 20 home runs, an OPS on base plus slugging of over 1. So the decimals add up to over 1. That's not easy to do. So he should be the starter, but Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves is also doing absolutely fantastic. He's batting .313, also with 20 bombs, and with an OPS of .999, almost 1. So Freddie Freeman has done slightly worse this year when compared to Josh Bell, but Freddie Freeman's also been on a better team. Josh Bell is currently leading the way in terms of voting for the National League first base vote, but Freddie Freeman is right behind him, and he's also doing very well this year, as I just mentioned. Other players who have done well, and there are a lot of great players in the National League at first base. Anthony Rizzo batting .280, 19 home runs with an OPS also at the .9 range. So a whole lot of good players. Max Muncy of the Los Angeles Dodgers batting .284, 17 home runs. OPS also in the .9 range. So, and then a rookie Pete Alonso of the New York Mets. He had a lot of hope coming into the season, and you can see why. He's batting .274 with 24 home runs. That's a lot of home runs to have, in the beginning of the season. People are talking about how the baseballs are being juiced and stuff like that. But he's on pace to hit 50 home runs or more this season. So he's doing real well. But there's so many talented first basemen. I can't go through them all. But those are the ones who've been doing the best. At second base in the American League, leading the way is a player most people don't know. And I don't blame you if you don't know him. Tommy La Stella of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, or just Los Angeles Angels. You never know with that team. He's batting .291 with 15 home runs. His OPS is not in the .9 range or the 1 range, so he's not quite as good, but he is very talented and has been proving his worth for the Angels. But there are a whole lot of good players in the AL second base. Tommy La Stella currently is leading the way. And he's probably my vote, but recently Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays, who I believe is a second-year player, though I could be wrong about that, he's batting .285, 15 home runs, and has a higher OPS than Tommy La Stella. Even though the average is slightly worse, they have the same amount of home runs. Lowe actually has more RBIs, 40 compared to 44, so it could really be between the two. I am leaning more towards La Stella because the Rays are a great team and are helped by a lot of great players. But aside from Tommy La Stella, there's Mike Trout, which I mean that's a good guy to have on your team. But other than Trout, there's not really anybody contributing much. Justin Upton just got back from injury, and he only made his season debut a few days ago. So yeah. One more player I'd like to mention for AL second base is Whit Merrifield of the Kansas City Royals. Speaking of teams that don't have much offense, Whit Merrifield has not been helped by the rest of his team in terms of how he's doing. He's batting .306 with 10 home runs, and also with an OPS around the range of La Stella and Lowe. The difference between him and La Stella and Lowe is that Merrifield steals bases, so you could make a good case for Merrifield being the starter. And I also predicted that he would do well this year. My predictions have mostly been doing well this year, aside from the Red Sox, but that's okay. Yeah, it's good. NL second base is also full of a lot of good players. Ketel Marte for the Arizona Diamondbacks is actually not even really a second baseman. He's a utility guy. But he's really proving his worth as a super utility guy in his definite breakout season. .293, 20 home runs, OPS in the .9 range. So he's doing really well. During free agency, if you listening at home are familiar with Marwin Gonzalez, who was formerly of the Astros, now on the Twins, he was looked at as, in free agency, one of the most important guys to get. More important than Bryce Harper or Manny Machado, arguably, because he's a utility player. But Ketel Marte has only proven his worth as being maybe even better than Gonzalez with his stats. But other players have been doing well. Mike Moustakas of the Brewers is batted .279 with 21 home runs, my bad, and an OPS .93. So really impressive stuff. It really is a whole lot of talent happening over there. And one more I want to talk about real quick is Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves. The Braves have had a fantastic year. They've really been helped by Freddie Freeman. Their pitching has been great. They've had a whole lot of good things happening, and that's why Ozzie Albies is leading the way in the NL Central. Sorry, not NL Central. NL second base. Kind of similar words. .283, 11 home runs. OPS not in the .9 range. So I have to give it to Ketel Marte because Mike Moustakas has been great, but he has an average worse than Marte and only has one more home run to show for it. And also, I personally don't like Mike Moustakas as a person. So a bit of personal bias there, but nothing wrong with that except for it's kind of wrong. Ketel Marte is my vote. So now third base. Third base always has great players, and it really is evident here. Hunter Dozier, Yoan Moncada, Alex Bregman, Matt Chapman are just a few of the great players At third base, Alex Bregman of the Houston Astros is leading the way, and he's batting .265 with 20 home runs and an OPS .9. See, all the great players seem to have .9. I want you to pay attention to that. One is even better. That makes you elite. Anyways, yeah, Alex Bregman, definite MVP candidate in the AL. He's just had a fantastic season. And he hasn't even had his best season. His best season was arguably last year. But he's only been turning up the dial. He's only getting better and better, and he's still very young. I believe he's only like 25. I could be mistaken, but he is not old. So there you go. Also, Matt Chapman of the Oakland A's, division rival. He's not even in the top 5, I don't think, which is the most disgusting thing because Matt Chapman is also another MVP candidate in the AL, even though the numbers don't necessarily show for it. Bregman is not a fantastic defensive player, but Chapman, he is maybe the best defensive player in the infield in general in the MLB. He's batting .257, 16 home runs, but an OPS in .8, so he's good. He's having a very good season. But Yoan Moncada of the Chicago White Sox, a team that hasn't had too much good happening to them this year, but also not too much bad. He's batting .292, 12 home runs, and he's been very impressive. I believe he's a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. So those are very impressive rookie numbers. And there have been a lot of impressive rookies this year. The most highly touted one is Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and he's not even having an all-star season, but everybody else is. Moncada, though, has a .85 OPS, so he's very good. And then one more for you. Hunter Dozier. This is kind of the guy that I want. It was Bregman, but when I think about who's having the best year, I just mentioned that Whit Merrifield didn't really have a whole lot of offense to go with him on the Kansas City Royals, but that was a bit of a lie because they have Hunter Dozier, and Hunter Dozier is having a fantastic season. He's also a great defensive player, which helps, but he's batting .314 with 11 home runs and an OPS in .9. So, round up, you get 1, so it's really good. Against Bregman and Dozier, I'm not really sure. You got .314 versus .265, but 11 versus 20 home runs. I'm going to give it to Dozier just because the on-base plus slugging percentage is higher. So, because I really wasn't sure. Now, National League third base is another very stacked position. Right now, leading the way is Nolan Arenado, one of my personal favorite players on the Colorado Rockies, and there's a good reason for it. He's batting .327, 18 home runs, 60 RBIs, which, if I'm not mistaken, leads the league, with a .98 OPS. But, even though he's doing so well and he's leading the way, Anthony Rendon is also having a fantastic season. He's batting .321, 16 home runs, 50 RBIs, only 10 off of the Arenado. 50 is still great. I just want to say that before you get mistaken. And an OPS over 1. So that kind of makes you think, I'm not really sure. Arenado has a better average and more home runs and more RBIs, but the OPS for Rendon's there. They're both some of the best players in the league over the past little while, over the past few years. And you can see why. Thing is, Arenado plays at Coors Field, and if you know anything about baseball, you might know that Coors Field is a place where people hit home runs and offense is very good, just to put it simply. Anthony Rendon does not play at Coors Field, or at least very often, so he's more in just a neutral ballpark. Well, neutral compared to Coors. So, I'm going to give it to Rendon because I don't think Rendon's ever been an all-star starter. And he deserves it, man. He really has. There are so many good third basemen, others being Eduardo Escobar of the Diamondbacks, Chris Bryant, Manny Machado, of course, Josh Donaldson, Eugenio Suarez. There are a lot. There are a lot. And those guys, two have also been having fantastic seasons. Eduardo Escobar, 288, 17 home runs, OPS of .9. Well, there you go. Chris Bryant, 282, 15 home runs, .941 OPS. And there were so many elite players. And the other guys I just mentioned haven't had as good of seasons, but those guys I just mentioned, they should be the ones you pay attention to. Because those four guys, they deserve to be all-stars, but I don't think all of them will be. You'll see Eduardo Escobar not make the all-star team, and you'll hear me complain about it, though you actually won't. I probably won't. Be like, oh, he should have made the all-star team. He was having a great season, but I digress. Shortstop, we're moving along. Jorge Polanco, Tim Anderson, Xander Bogaerts. Jorge Polanco is leading the way for the Minnesota Twins. He's another great player on the Twins offense that just has a lot of great players right now. 326 and 10 home runs, OPS of .9. Hey, that makes you good, right? Tim Anderson of the White Sox has also had a great season, and he's really one of the most fun players in the league, in my opinion, because he just plays the game fun, but he doesn't do it in like a mean-spirited kind of way, like Chris Archer, in my opinion. Tim Anderson, 314, 10 home runs, .823 OPS, and not as good as Polanco, but he's a fun player. He should make the All-Star team. He's having a great breakout season. Xander Bogaerts of the Boston Red Sox. The Red Sox have had a disappointing season. They haven't even had a bad season, but they've had a disappointing season. But Xander Bogaerts has not been disappointing. He's batting .300, 14 home runs, .9 OPS. So that makes you good. I'm going to give it to Polanco, though. He definitely deserves to make it. 326, 10 home runs. That should be enough to satisfy anybody. A whole lot of good shortstops, too, out there. You got Carlos Correa of the Astros, Francisco Lindor of the Indians, and honestly, I'm just scrolling down this list. There are a lot of great players. National League shortstop. Shortstop's also quite good there, but there aren't as many great players there as there is in the American League. Trevor Story, another Colorado Rocky, is batting .294 with 17 home runs already and a .9 OPS. Huh. Trevor Story, of course, plays at Coors, so, it's subject to suspicion because, you never know how much the numbers can be inflated when you play at Coors Field for half your games. Javier Baez of the Chicago Cubs, third in MVP voting last year, I believe, is batting .282 and 17 home runs. Paul DeJong of the St. Louis Cardinals has also been having a breakout season. .279, 13 home runs, .871 OPS. But he's having a great year. OPS, as much as I seem to have praised it today, doesn't tell you everything. So a whole lot of good players, but I think I'm going to give it to Story, because Story has the average. .294 against .282 and .279. He has as many home runs as Baez, but also a higher OPS to show for it. And even though he plays at Coors, I still think Trevor Story is the best shortstop out there. But in terms of what the fans think right now, the fans are saying, wait, Joey, wait. No. Javier Baez should be starting, probably because of Chicago. Anyways. Catcher. Catcher's not very interesting, especially in the AL. The guy you're going to look at is Gary Sanchez. He's leading the league. He's leading the way in the AL catching. .261, 20 home runs, .931 OPS. There's nobody that matches him. That's the thing. I can't even point out anybody else that's like, this guy's having a really good season, because there are people who are having good seasons, but Gary Sanchez is just far and away the best one. So, moving on to the National League catcher. Leading the way right now is Wilson Contreras of the Chicago Cubs. He's batting .287, 13 home runs, .916 OPS. And I really think that he might be the best hitting catcher. Maybe Sanchez is better, but Wilson Contreras is the catcher that... He's a better pitch framer and everything. He might be the best catcher in the league, maybe. But there are other good catchers, too. JT Realmuto hasn't been getting very much attention after being acquired for the Phillies from Miami. 277, 10 home runs, solid numbers. Same with Yasmani Grandal, who may be the best pitch framer in the league for the Brewers. 274, 15 home runs. His OPS is about on par with Contreras. So, I mean, Grandal can make it too. But my vote is at Contreras because, I mean, numbers sell, you know. There aren't really the numbers that you have for pitch framing as much as you do for, you know, just hitting. So, yeah, I think that I agree with the fans. Contreras is definitely the best catcher far and away. Oh, the outfield. The outfield has so many good players, especially in the AL. You got Michael Brantley of the Astros, 315, 10 home runs. Austin Meadows of the Rays, 314, 12 home runs, .9 OPS, Trey Mancini of the Baltimore Orioles. He should make it because he's really good. .304, 16 home runs, .9 OPS. Mike Trout, you don't need any introduction. 294, 20 home runs, OPS over 1. He is elite. Max Kepler, he just did a lot for the Twins last night. He tied the game twice and then won it in the 17th against the Red Sox. 279, 18 home runs, .9 OPS. Joey Gallo, he's hurt right now, but for the Rangers, he's having a real breakout season. 276, 17 home runs, OPS over 1. He's having a fantastic year. Eddie Rosario with the Twins, 265, 19 home runs, .8 OPS. But he's still doing great. There are so many good players out there. But if I had to pick just 3, which is really painful for me, well, first, let's see what the fans say. The fans say Mike Trout. The fans say George Springer, who I didn't even mention there. George Springer, by the way, has hit a lot of home runs this year. But the interesting thing is his average isn't really that high when compared to the rest of the people I just mentioned, I mean. He's not that great. I mean, there are a lot of great players. He's actually... No, I lie. George Springer is having a good year. He's batting .308, 17 home runs, OPS over 1. So I'm a liar. Forget me. I'm a liar. I'm sorry. So yeah, he deserves it. And then Michael Brantley. But the players that I choose, it would have to be Mike Trout. I mean, you got to put Mike Trout there. I would go Austin Meadows for the Rays. Then I would go George Springer. So, yeah, I'm kind of eating my own words from earlier. And then if I had to choose who's on the bench there, I would say Joey Gallo and Trey Mancini. If I had to pick 2, Michael Brantley would be my third. And then in the NL has 2 players that are easily going to make it. Like, if these players don't make it, I will cry. I'm kidding. Cody Bellinger of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's having an insane year. Cody Bellinger, 355, 23 home runs, 58 RBIs. Remember, I just said that Arenado is 60, and that leads the league, if I'm not mistaken. And an OPS of 1.1. 1.15, which rounds up to 1.2. He's looking like the best player in the league. If it weren't for Christian Yelich, who's having almost just as good of a year, who's batting .340, still amazing, 26 home runs, 3 more than Bellinger, 57 RBIs, 1 less than Bellinger, and an OPS compared to 1.15, 1.17. So Yelich should definitely be starting. But who else? Well, there are a lot of good outfielders, a lot of great outfielders, but mine would have to be Charlie Blackmon of the Colorado Rockies. Of course, Coors Field, I don't need to mention it again. You already get my point. 341, 16 home runs, OPS over 1. If you have an OPS over 1 in my book, you're pretty dang good. Yeah, there are a whole lot of fantastic players. Ronald Acuna Jr., last year's Rookie of the Year, 297, 17 home runs, but a .8 OPS. Not really sure about that one, but he's still having a great year. Don't get me wrong. But I would have to choose the three that I mentioned before as my players that I'd have starting. And then other than that, the outfield kind of drops off significantly. There are people who hit a lot of home runs because balls are juiced or whatever, but nothing's really the same. And then at DH has JD Martinez, who is far and away leading the way, which he probably should be, batting .292, 16 home runs, .9 OPS. But I will be burnt at stake, clinging to my desire for Hunter Pence to be the AL DH starter. Please. Hunter Pence last year was out of the league. He had nowhere to go. He had been a San Francisco Giant, and if you pay attention at all to the San Francisco Giants, you know that they are hard in the phase where, oh man, we want to get back to the World Series, but our team just can't do it. Hunter Pence for the Texas Rangers. He's not on the Giants anymore. .294, 15 home runs, higher OPS than JD Martinez. That is a person I want to start. Comeback Player of the Year. Come on, let's do it. Hunter Pence. Okay. Sorry. I do that when I talk about Hunter Pence. I care a lot about him. So I think that'll do it for this week's edition of the Payoff Pitch, and I really hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, check us out on YouTube. Search up Clark Montessori Athletics, Payoff Pitch, whatever you want, and you will find it. Make sure to check us out on TuneIn Radio 95.7. And from me, Joey Olberding, I hope you stay tuned to MRC for more Payoff Pitch and so much more.